any game that doesn't have fun as one of its central themes is, or like to have fun in mind, is a failure of a game, because that's part of the medium itself. Yeah, video games are art. Like, I won't argue that at all. Like, but they're a very different kind of medium for art. Like, a sculpture doesn't need to be fun. It can be. I've seen some like weird like moving sculptures that are absolutely baller. A painting doesn't need to be fun. It's just art. It tells its medium through just visual image alone. Video games are the only place where you can enthrall like how many senses? Like sight, hearing, like it's an experience on top of being art. And so you have to, like, despite like all your artistic intentions, you have to keep in mind, like you have to be able to look outside of it and like objectively say, is this fun? Are people gonna find this fun? And like, it's difficult, but it's easy. Like, how do you make a fun game? It's like, well, if you're making like an RPG, it needs to have like the attacks, like Final Fantasy. Like, what makes Final Fantasy fun? Even though you have to grind like hell, like it needs to be flashy. The sound effects need to pop off. They need to be like very like if you're gonna make like a fire effect, it needs to be bright. It needs to stand out. It needs to be like unambiguously like, bam, you did that. Like, it needs to be bold, like those attacks and this and that. I'm kind of stealing part of what I know from another sequelitis where he was talking about Castlevania. When they started, like, after Castlevania 1 and Castlevania 2, the game got much grindier, but the gameplay didn't really change. Meanwhile, like, more modern Castlevanias are grindy, but they're fun because, like, and it sounds stupid, but the particle effects are better. The sound effects for, like, when you do things are better. Like, there are elements you can add to a game that make you feel like, especially powerful. Like if the game makes you feel powerful or like you're whooping ass, like people love that shit. And then I mean we could get into like the whole conversation of like when you're absolutely whooping ass on a game. Like for some people that's all they want. They just want to whoop ass. But for other people, like, they have to be whooping ass because they're skilled. And then you get into like skill ceilings, and like Dark Souls is a big example. Like, that's a lot of people gatekeep the shit out of the Dark Souls series, and like it's a good series, don't get me wrong. I'm not very good at it, but it really kickstarted a huge like movement for like games. Like, if this is a hard game, like it makes you feel accomplished. And I understand that too. Like, if you beat like a super hard game, like when I beat Metal Gear Solid 1, I felt accomplished as fuck. Like, that was hard. Like, when I was done with it, I felt like I had achieved something. And that's a different kind of fulfillment than like Katamari, where I just roll shit into a ball, which is satisfying because look at me roll shit into a ball. Like, as far as games go and like fun, I guess you have to like focus that fun through what context you want the game to be fun. Like, it's all a giant balancing act. Like, you want a game to be fun, but you also don't want to completely dictate how a player is supposed to play it. Like, yeah, the game can be linear, and the game can have like such and such elements and this and that, and like, that's not to say there's not like certain ways you have to do things. Like in Shovel Knight, a fantastic Metroidvania style game, there are sections where you absolutely need to use the shovel to bounce across things, and like certain obstacles that can only be cleared with certain items. But at the most part, like as far as freedom of movement, how you fight bosses, what damage you deal, what sub items you use to like help you deal that damage is up to the player. Because if a game doesn't give you any agency, it's not a very good video game. If there's no agency to be found, like even in a simple game, like even Pong gives you player agency because you move the controller, you're in control. That's part of the medium. So you have to balance like what is fun, how do you want your players to have fun while still giving them enough agency to fulfill that, instead of being like the game should be played like this. Nobody wants to play a game where you're told how to play. That's just chores. That's just following instructions. I can build an IKEA bookshelf, but there's only one way to build an IKEA bookshelf. And it's with pegs and maybe a hammer if you need one. I just use other pieces and smack it into place. But there's really only one way to build that IKEA bookshelf. I don't like building IKEA bookshelves. I like playing video games.